Welcome to the Program Design Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Monique, teacher and curriculum writer turned program mentor and business strategist for coaches, educators, and online experts. Whether you're looking to create your first ever group coaching program or scale your current offer for more freedom, revenue, and consistent income, this is the podcast for you. Here you'll find practical strategies and encouragement mixed with a bit of manifestation and intuition to help you grow and design a program you absolutely love. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Program Design Podcast. I am thrilled to have you here with me. So if you are a new listener, thanks so much for tuning in. And if you have been listening in for a while, thanks for coming back. Love to have you here. In this series, we're going to be talking about visibility, because what has really surprised me in the last few years of doing this work of helping entrepreneurs launch and scale group programs is that one of the biggest blocks that comes up for people is visibility. And actually, when you have a stronger program design, that has really, really helped folks with their fear of visibility. So that's what I want to dive into today. But before I do, this is our part one. We're going to be talking about starting your group program. In part two, we're going to be talking more about the fears that can come up when you're scaling and how to address those fears. But this one is part one. We're talking more about when you are starting your group, what fears might be coming up for you and how to get past them. So before we dive into this week's episode, I just have to give you a little backstory on the episode I am recording. So normally, if you ever have seen any of my videos of recording my podcast, I record them on my desk, which I have a whole desk set up. We have a living room and a family room in our house, and my office is part of our living room. So that's the space where I do a lot of my work. So if you ever see me in my videos, that's where I am. But in this episode, I am in a completely different location. My kids are downstairs playing video games. They're a little video game stint of the day. And I'm upstairs to record this podcast episode. And I'm actually in my 5-year-old's room at the moment. So I'm so curious to see if the audio quality is going to be better in here, actually, because it's a much smaller room. There's a lot of there's carpet in here and cushions and things like that. So we'll see how the audio quality is. I'm very curious. But the main reason I want to share this with you is sometimes I find, having worked with entrepreneurs, I realize just how much I make things happen. I will just do things quickly, make it happen. Just go ahead. And what I've noticed in my clients is the ones who really do well will take action and move forward quickly and don't wait for the perfect scenario or the perfect circumstance. And so I want to encourage you too. And I also want to encourage you, if your life circumstances are maybe challenging, or there's, you have family or people you're taking care of, or maybe there's some things that you're navigating right now, you don't have to wait for perfection. You can just go for it. So here I am in my 5-year-old's room. So let's dive into this week's episode about starting your group program and some of the visibility blocks that you might be experiencing. Now, before I dive in, what I do want to share is the way I'm going to be approaching the visibility here, because I know some of my clients are literally visibility experts and mindset coaches. I'm going to be speaking more from a practical standpoint of how I've navigated these and how I've made more mindset shifts and how I've been able to overcome these fears. But I also want to encourage you too that sometimes these things are deeper inner work, because entrepreneurship is an inner game, right? And so if you do want to work with someone who specializes in a fear of visibility and maybe doing internal work, or I have a client who does internal family systems and parts work when she helps folks overcome their fears of visibility. So there is a lot of support out there for you. So I do want to encourage you, if this is a big thing for you, there is more work that you can do to really support yourself with this. But in this episode, I want to share some more practical, simple strategies that you can apply just from this podcast that can help you move through these fears, because I think it's very rare for my clients not to have experienced some of these. I know I have. And so I just want you to know that you're not alone with it and you can overcome them. So let's chat first about the top 2 fears that I see holding my clients back from launching their group programs. And then we're going to talk about what you can do to move through them. So the first fear is some variation a fear of failing, especially a fear of failing publicly. So this might look like you might be afraid that you won't fill your program, that people will see that it doesn't work, that you flopped, that you run a webinar and no one shows up, or there's a tech issue or whatever it is. And so it's not just fear of failure, it's fear of failing publicly. And I just want to normalize this because this is really an understandable fear, because it's kind of like combining, when you think about it, a fear of failing with a fear of public speaking. In a way, it's almost the same, right? It's like, not only are you going to be speaking in front of a group or showing up in front of a group of people, you're also risking failure in front of those people, which can be very, very daunting. And so I just want to normalize that if this is something that you're going through. Everyone feels that. What if no one shines up? Like all of that, that's super normal. Most people go through a moment like that. I want to encourage you, though, to remember is that a fear of failing and a fear of not selling seats doesn't mean anything about you. And if you are afraid of that, I would encourage you to look at that and say, like, what am I actually making this mean? If I don't make sales or I don't fill my program, that means I am, or therefore, blah, blah, blah. So what is the interpretation you are giving that fear? So if you're afraid that you're not going to sell or you're not going to fill your program, what are you making it mean? Are you making it mean that this will never work? That you should never have done this in the first place? That maybe you're just not cut out for this? Maybe no one wants what you have? I don't know what other meanings you could be giving that. And none of those meanings are going to serve you. Instead, I would encourage you to think about other interpretations. And one of my favorite tools that I share with my clients is when you are going through a feeling like this, is to think about what are you making it mean? And can you create more interpretations for yourself? Ideally 10. So you start to realize it's not truth. It's just a belief that you've created. You've created it an interpretation that's not necessarily the be all and end all. So could it also mean let's go there, if you don't fill your program, you could make it mean that you're not cut out for this, that no one wants what you have, blah, blah, blah. Or you could make it mean that this is a new skill and I'm just learning how to do this. Or maybe not enough people saw my offer. Or maybe I just need to tweak my offer. Maybe I need to do more market research. Maybe there weren't enough people that saw it. Maybe I need to dive deeper into what people's objections are. Maybe I didn't speak to those. Maybe I need to tweak my messaging. Maybe my sales system wasn't quite right for me. And what I want you to notice here is that instead of seeing failing or that you're going to fail and you're not going to fill those spots as a negative to avoid, that it's just like, it can just be part of it and you can just make it a learning experience and like it can be neutral. So one of my mentors often says, you either get the result you wanted or the lesson you needed. And the more you can see it as a scientist, the more you can see it as like, oh, I didn't get it yet, but I can just keep going. Then you will be able to move past this fear of people not signing up. And one of my favorite ways to think about this is when I remember very distinctly when my son was learning to use scissors. He was, 4 or something like that. And he's always been the kind of kid that really wants to get things the first time. Like when he was learning how to crawl, he got so angry he couldn't crawl and he was just flailing and on his stomach at 5 months, like so angry that he couldn't crawl. And then he learned how to crawl, but every new skill, he has this moment of like anger before he figures it out. Like it's just part of his pattern. And at one point he was cutting, like he was learning how to cut and he couldn't figure out how to do it. He threw the scissors across the room in our dining room out of anger. And eventually calmed down. He started to use the scissors again and eventually got past it. But I could see that this was a phase that he was eventually going to learn how to use the scissors. Everybody does. Nobody knows. Nobody is born using scissors. We all have to figure out how to learn to use scissors. And I knew that he would move past this phase, that this was just a learning curve for him. And eventually he was going to be able to use those scissors. And anytime I'm doing something new and I don't get the result that I want and I feel like throwing the metaphorical scissors, I just remember if I can see a wiser part of me, like my future self, higher self, a mentor, however you want to think about it. and see it from the future that like, this is just a phase. This is just the steps that I'm going through because I'm learning something new. I'm developing something new. I haven't done this before and I'm just going to figure it out. And I might not figure it out now, but I'll figure it out later. And there is literally nothing wrong with him not being able to use those scissors. Like, he just learned how to use the scissors. And the same is true for you. If you don't make sales, there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean you're not cut out for this. It doesn't mean that you're not meant for this. It doesn't mean that, it's embarrassing and blah, blah, blah. And what are people going to think? Odds are, if you didn't make that many sales or you made 0 sales, most people don't even know because most people didn't even see the offer. You don't need to make it mean that it's this embarrassing, horrible thing. You could just make it mean like, oh, I'm just learning to use the scissors, just like my kid was, right? So that's the first thing, is just seeing it as a neutral, that this is something that I'm moving through and it's not something I need to be embarrassed about. Because if my child was learning to do something new, or if a kid, even if you don't have children, was learning to do something new, you wouldn't think of it as embarrassing for them. So why is it any different for you? So that's the first one. The second fear that I see people moving against or struggling with is fear of not being enough of an expert. So that might be like, why would they buy from me when they could buy from somebody else? Oh, she's so much more established than me. Who am I to do this? Imposter syndrome. What if I can't help someone? Blah, 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 blah. Any variation of that, it's like fear that I'm not good enough, fear that I'm not an expert enough, fear that I really can't help people. And the most practical way that I can help you move through this, because this one held me back for so long, like 3 years, at least 2, I would say. I sat frozen in this and I look back and I think like, oh my gosh, why was I sitting in that? That was completely unnecessary. The reason, the strategy, the way that you can get over this is to actually put yourself out there and do the thing. The more you can realize and talk to the people that you are meant to help, the more you're going to realize just how much more knowledge, skills, strategies, methodologies, whatever it is that you do, you're going to realize just how much you can support them when you start thinking about them and not about you. Does that make sense? So anytime I'm going to do something new and I get all up in my head about it, I remember it's not about me. It's about the people that I'm here to serve. And that can help to an extent, but it really cannot replace when you actually go to do your beta program, when you actually go to do your pilot, your first ever round, and you get the people in front of you. Once you actually make those sales, you realize, oh my gosh, there is so much. I have vastly underestimated how much I can actually help these people. And it becomes, you can really get out of your own way when you can actually focus on the people in front of you. But the more you sit at home wondering if you're an expert enough, the more you're just going to reinforce that fear, and you're not going to be able to actually see how much you can support people. Like, I had a client who finished pilot program design a few months ago, and she launched her program and she reached out to me and she said, oh my God, it was amazing. She had 4 people in her group. She said, it's the work I am meant to do. She was just elated, like beyond. She is thrilled that she's doing this. But I know that she had to go through that fear of like, what if I'm not an expert? What if I like visibility, like putting myself out there? And now she's just realizing to what extent she can really support these clients, right? And what I would say for this one about fear that you're not enough of an expert, the first thing from a practical standpoint is for you to realize that yes, there are going to be people who know more than you. Of course there are. There are going to be people who are better at your thing than you are. And there are going to be people that do it differently or not the same way as you or whatever. That's not really what matters. What actually matters is the people who are going to be drawn to your message are going to need what you do. And it doesn't matter if you are like, I say this with a grain of salt. The people in my world are already experts. They are already trained in what they do. They already have a great level of expertise. Even if there are people who are more experienced than you or are packaging it better than you or whatever, that doesn't really matter because you are so much further ahead of the people that you are here to support. Also, to remember that people have different levels of expertise that they have developed, and we can still learn from one another. So one of the ways that I got over this one is I remember for a long time I was very afraid to mentor teachers. And I thought, who am I to stand up and say that I can be a teacher mentor when no one gave me permission? No one hired me to be a teacher mentor. I just decided one day I wanted to be one, right? Which I think is a little bit like, even now when I help people in program design, like as a curriculum expert and a business strategist, it is easier for me in a certain way to say I'm a curriculum expert because I have a background as an educator, because I was a teacher, like a curriculum writer. I've done it enough times and I have that educational background to say I've got this thing. So in that way, I didn't feel as much of the imposter syndrome. And so maybe if you have a specific kind of expertise, maybe you're a therapist, maybe you're a dietitian or something like that, you already know you have that level of expertise and you're not going to feel this one. But sometimes you can, if you are getting caught on not being enough of an expert or not good enough in some way, it can feel hard to just decide that you're going to do this when no one has officially given you permission, right? And so when I decided I wanted to be a teacher mentor, yes, I was a credentialed teacher, but so were all the other people that I was mentoring, right? And so the way that I got past this was, I remember very specifically one day I had someone join my program. She was a very accomplished teacher. She was probably, I would say, in her 60s. Maybe 50s, 60s. And she joined my program. And I remember thinking like, I can't help you. You have so many years of teaching experience on me. Like, I'm here to say that I can help you stop working weekends. You've been working way longer, way more years than me. Like, how can I say that I could possibly do that for you? And I remember her signing up and feeling so nervous about it. And then I started working with her and I realized, oh my gosh, of course I can help you too. Like, there's just no doubt. And what I realized is I just had different training and different life experience and different skills, different strengths than she did. She was someone who was highly educated. She had her master's, I believe, in some sort of educational background. She did a lot of special education. She provided like learning plans for kids. She was really, really knowledgeable in primary. And one of the expertise that she had was teaching kids how to read who struggled to learn how to read. I did not have that level of expertise. That was not my specialty as a teacher, right? My specialty was French immersion if you go back to my degree, right? And if I needed to learn from someone around how to learn how to teach kids who are struggling to read, like who have dyslexia or learning disabilities, whatever, I would go to her. She would have all of that expertise. But I had different expertise than she did. I knew what beliefs were. I knew that you can shift beliefs. I know mindset work. I know how to systematize your classroom. I know how to simplify your lesson planning. I know how to create curriculum and unit plannings in a way that's strategic and simplified. And I really can help you save time, stop working weekends, because I know what blocks stop people from that. I know what blocks create more work for people. I know why they overwork because I know what mindset is going on behind that. And I also know the strategies to support them to work less. And that's because I developed that over time. And the more I worked on my program, the more I honed in on that skill and I got better and better at it. She hadn't spent her time doing that. She was spending all her time getting better and better and caring about her students. And she made all the same mindset mistakes that she overworked and worried about not being good enough and all of those mindset stuff that got in the way of her being able to work less. And so once I realized I could help her and she worked less and less, fewer hours, she didn't fully stop working weekends because it was kind of part of her identity, but she still worked less and she had less stress. She had more freedom in her days. I realized, oh my gosh, like to think I was letting this fear of not being good enough hold me back when it's really, we all have different things that we're bringing. And this just happens to be my area of expertise. And she would not have joined my program had she not been looking for the thing that I can help her with. And so I share that story to remind you that when you go to launch your programs, you're going to get people who are specifically looking for the thing that you can help them with. And when you can focus in on what they need, you're going to notice just how much expertise you actually have and how much you can really, truly help people. But the more you hold back, the more you take more time to launch your program, the harder it's going to be. The faster you can get into action, the faster you can talk to people, the faster you can get it up and going. Even if you only have 3 people, the more you're going to be able to get it off the ground quickly. And you're going to be able to get over that fear. So yes, there is mindset work that you can do. Absolutely. I've done a lot of those strategies too, rewiring my subconscious mind, all of those kinds of things. But sometimes it's also just about giving yourself proof and taking the action and noticing like the story I'm telling in my head right now is just a story that is not actually reality. I can still do this, and I'm finding proof in my reality that it's possible for me. So let's recap what we talked about. The two top fears that I see holding entrepreneurs back from launching their programs around visibility is either fear of publicly failing or fear of being not good enough, not an expert enough, any kind of form of imposter syndrome, right? And so the thing to get over that, if you do, now this is a caveat, if you do have the experience, the expertise, and if you don't, you can help people for free, you can gather that, but the people who I talk to is not the case. Like every client I've ever had has tons of expertise, but still can doubt themselves. So this is for you if you're in that camp, right? If you have that fear of publicly failing and having people see, know that you can see it as a scientist that you just haven't filled it yet. You don't need to worry about what people are going to think. Most people aren't even going to notice anyway, and just see it as I just haven't done it yet. It's just like the scissors. He knows how to cut now. You will figure out how to fill your group program as long as you decide that it's possible for you and you keep moving through it. And then the second one was fear of not being good enough, fear of not being an expert enough. And the more you can get out of your own mind and focus in on the people that you're here to help, and you can actually see what they're struggling with and notice what you can do to help them, that's when you're going to be able to get beyond that, because you're going to notice you're not going to stop thinking about your own stuff, and you're going to start thinking of all the tools and ways that you can help them because you're focusing on them instead of you. So I hope that this was helpful for you. I would love to hear from you. You can always message me on Instagram at lauramonique.business. Would love to hear from you. And I will see you in part 2 when we're going to go into visibility, but the things that come up when you're going to scale and get in front of new audiences who have never seen you before, what can come up and how to move past that. So I'm looking forward to having you in next week's episode. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you next week.